What would you say if I told you I have a brother who is a golden child, and nothing that he does can be wrong in the eyes of my parents? But what if I tell you that I have a secret about my brother that he doesn't think that I know about? And it's not only a secret, guys, he's been lying, and I'm going to expose him to everybody. But first, I need your help because I don't know if I should do it or not. They say that you can only play the hand that life deals you. And I say life dealt me dirty. First of all, it gave me unremarkably average things. All my life, I've been the face that's easily forgotten, the friend that can easily be left behind, and the child that can never reach for what he aimed for. Secondly, it gave me Hank and Rita as parents, people who believe that love, affection, approval, encouragement are something to be earned and dispensed like sugar in the Great Depression. No matter how hard I tried, no matter what I did, they were never impressed with me. Never happy with me, never pleased with me. I was the child that never did right. And most frustrating of all, it gave me a younger brother who was just so good at everything. Talk about school, he was at the top of his class. Talk about friends, he easily fits into the crowd. He could make friends in 30 seconds, and talk about girls. His good looks and a larger-than-life attitude drew the ladies in of all colors and sizes to him, like bees to flowers, and it helped that he had no need to wear glasses. Talk about winning our parents' affection and approval. He was their golden child, and he was everything that I was not, in more ways than one. Fred, my younger brother, was better than me. His achievements made my barely average life more average, and my efforts definitely more disappointing. Not that it stopped me from trying and striving to be good enough. It did not stop me from staying up late to read so that I could cross from an average to good. It didn't stop me from angling any for complaints. Just a little, quote, "You did well, son." And yet, no matter how much I tried, I could never be good enough. Not with Fred continuously pointing out my failure, but simply standing beside me. He made the difference between us stark. Perhaps if I had been the only child, I would have had a chance at earning at least one hug from my parents. I cannot recall a time they hugged me even by mistake. Not even a pat on the back, and I can vividly recall how I always stood by and just watched as Fred received hugs and kisses almost every single day of my life. Upon second thought, I do not think being an only child would have made a difference in the eyes of my father and mother. My parents believe that their children are trophies meant to be displayed for their friends, enemies, and acquaintances to see. We were meant to show forth just how much of good parents they both were. Our achievements were not necessarily ours, but merely a star to add to their medals as, quote, world's best father and mother. When they discovered that I could not even qualify as a bronze trophy, I was hidden away, literally and figuratively. I was never allowed to join special outings. I was never introduced and paraded to my parents' friends. I could never ask for anything, and that special privilege was reserved for only the golden son. I definitely could never get away with anything, while Fred was always right and could simply do no wrong. I'd say, perhaps, the most irritating characteristics of this hand that I've been dealt is the fact that I can never make Fred sad or angry. I could not exercise my older brother's authority over him. I was simply just to stand back and allow Fred to make my life miserable, and how he was so delighted in doing that. I recall how many toys, clothings, and belongings that Fred had stolen from me. I say stolen because even though our parents get him every single toy, shirt, shoe, and every inconsequential thing that he wants, he would always just want my stuff. And of course, my parents would just give it to him without even asking him for my permission. Because who cared if it was the toy given to me by my grandfather, Sam? The only man who ever treated me with the same respect and kindness he showed. Fred, who cared if those things were very special to me? All these things our parents did gave him the entitlement and the boldness to go after my friends. When he found out that I liked a girl, he would woo her, and got her to be his girlfriend just for fun. It was like my father, mother, and brother all believed that just because I was average, I did not get to enjoy my life? During college, life was a bit bearable. If one could count being completely ignored as bearable, but at least I was always from the ever-present comparison between Fred and me. I could breathe without fear of being set down. I could be the average person that I was without any apology. And after college, Fred and I both moved out of our parents' house. Thankfully, Fred was as uninterested as I was in being roommates. However, our parents demanded that Fred and I meet them for brunch every month. If you're wondering if I do attend, the answer is yes. They may hardly listen to what I say, but I can't stop myself from hoping that it would be the family event, where I would finally see my father smile at me or my mother hug me because she's pleased with me. Soon after I moved into my apartment, I got a job as a salesman in a regular company. Of course, my parents did not celebrate me, not when at the same family event, Fred announced that he had just got a high-paying finance job in a bigwig company. The only person to acknowledge my accomplishments was my grandfather, who was visiting at the time, and every brunch after that, well, consisted of Fred entertaining our parents. It was my childhood all over again, and guys, at this point, I thought that was the worst my life could ever turn to. Until this Monday, when I got to my workplace and got called into my manager's office. The company was downsizing and they were laying me off. Guys, when I heard that, my first thought was not for myself, but what would I tell my family? They already believe that I'm as good as nothing, and this would only serve to reinforce that belief, as well as their terrible attitude toward me. To make matters worse, our monthly brunch is coming up in 3 days, where I'll surely be asked to give an update on my life. I could lie, but what if they could help me with another job? Should I even ask them to help in getting another job? How can I face them at the next family event? Oh my gosh, what can I do? Comment number 1 from the original post says, I must say, you have really been through a lot. The most damaging phrase in the human language is, quote, you are not enough. And you spent each day of your life being told this, both in words and in actions. I'm just so sorry that you had to face that. Your recent layoff and upcoming family brunch may seem daunting, but they also present opportunities for growth and self-reflection. Perhaps this is the push that you need to reevaluate your career and redefine success on your own terms. Your brother's accomplishments do not diminish yours. They're separate journeys, and remember, your worth is not measured by comparison, but by the strength of your character and resilience. You've made it through tough times before, and you can do it again. Take this chance to rediscover your passions and rebuild your confidence. Your family may surprise you with their support, and even if they don't, you'll emerge stronger and more self-assured. Comment number 2. Hey, sorry to say, but your life sounds like one long string of disappointments. Constantly being compared to your brother has clearly taken a toll on your self-esteem. And now losing your job? It's no wonder you're anxious about facing your family. They're probably just adding salt to the wound, reminding you of your failures. Your brother's success will only highlight your shortcomings. Honestly, it's hard to see how you'll break this cycle of inadequacy. You need to stop making excuses and take responsibility for your life. Instead of dwelling on comparisons, focus on what you lack, which is drive, ambition, or maybe just a bit of self-discipline. Until you change your mindset, you'll remain stuck in this rut. Update number 1, 4 days later. Hey guys, it's been a little while since I came here with my life story and cried for help. And since then, you all have been extravagant with your support and advice. And for that, I'm so grateful. I'm here with an update on what's happened since then. Our family's monthly brunch was yesterday. When I was asked about the latest update on my life, I told them that I've been laid off from my job, and that I was on the lookout for a new job. You would not believe what my father, my mother, and Fred did. They burst out laughing. My mother laughed till tears leaked out of her eyes, and it was the most embarrassing day of my life since Fred kissed the girl I liked right in front of me. And just when I thought it could not get any more embarrassing or demeaning, my father looked at me and said that I better pray to anyone above so that I could be like Fred. Well, that caused another round of laughter amongst the table, and they were laughing so hard that I half expected them to stop breathing, and it only went downhill from there. My mother, trying to catch her breath, agreed with the stupid statement my father said, and added that it would be better for everyone if I could just be a little like Fred. Perhaps then I could finally get a taste of success. Well, Fred asked if he should loan me his clothing so that I could be smeared with a little bit of Fred luck. As I sat there watching them mock me, receiving the insults they hurled at me, my eyes finally opened, and I could finally see. I saw that I was the one who had been the fool for so long, waiting, hoping, living my life, charting my path in a stupid attempt to get the approval of parents. Even my brother. I was foolish because I failed to recognize that my parents would never love me. I could never win their approval, and Fred would never treat me with brotherly affection and respect. They would never change their mind and stop seeing me as average, and I was a fool for wasting so much of my life on them, especially this foolish monthly brunch. I was the fool for allowing them to define me, for letting them define my self-worth, for believing that because they called me average, that was what I was. Gosh, how much of my life have I wasted on them? I can't recall a time when I pursued a personal interest or fought for what I wanted. My course of study in college was not even something I enjoyed. I simply picked an average course for an average guy. I let them trick me into believing that, just because I was different, I was less worthy of love, self-identity, and life in general. Well, no more. They might have stolen most of my life from me, but I still have not given them any more. I will not give them a second more over my life, and I'll start by no longer attending the family monthly brunch. I'm no longer blind to not see that brunch is my parents' excuse to compare me with Fred and find me wanting more. It's not like they ever called a checkup on me. I mean, the brunch is our only contact, and I'm ready to cut that. I can't allow them to keep on doing what they do to my mental health and my personality. It's time to face my life and discover myself. Update number 2, 7 days later. Hey guys, it's me again. It's been a bit of a while since I was here. Some of you probably thought you would not be hearing from me again. Well, I'm here with the most intriguing update that I would like to share with you all. First of all, I would like to thank you for your support. You've all created a safe place for me, and coming from a guy who is hard to work with, to receive affection, it means a lot to me. As I stated in my last post, I cut all ties with my family and have not associated with any of them since that disastrous brunch. Since then, I've been living my life trying to discover who I am one day at a time. I'm no closer to finding a new job than I was the morning of my layoff. But one thing is sure, my next job won't just be to pay the bills. Instead, it'll be something I truly enjoy. Now, to the intriguing update I have for you. Last night, I went to the bar for a quick drink. There, I stumbled upon Nelly, Fred's friend. The guy looked all wound up like he had something terrible stuck in his craw. So I sat beside him and let him know that it did not, bother me. I don't mind listening. He could share his troubles, and I did not see what he unloaded on me coming. He revealed to me that Fred has been living with him after being unable to pay his rent and getting kicked out just a few months ago. However, Nelly got tired of Fred living with them. According to Nelly, Fred was a lazy man who did nothing in the house, not even a task as menial as mowing the lawn. All Fred did was go out in the morning and return to eat food and sleep. He doesn't do chores, and to top it off, he never buys groceries, never pays any bills, and has an affinity for borrowing quick cash from Nelly without ever paying back. Fred was a freeloader of the highest order, a bum. This began to irritate Nelly, and Nelly began to wonder how a man who supposedly had such a high-paying finance job in a major company was finding it hard to get an apartment of his own, and was always claiming to be so cash-strapped he could not afford to buy groceries, instead just always asking for a loan. His wondering pushed him to investigate, and Nelly soon discovered that there was No high-paying finance job, there never was. Fred had been lying to Nellie, to me, to our parents, and literally everyone. Well, this angered Nellie, and now he wants to throw Fred out of the house. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Who would have thought that this golden boy was nothing more than a crook? A man who would do anything to stay in his parents' good graces, even lie and live off of his friends, and to think that this was the person I constantly was being compared to. Gosh, I wonder what my parents will do if they find out what they've been bragging about to their friends and enemies does not exist. How would they feel to discover that they've been played the fool by their favorite child? And I'm really considering telling our parents. If not for anything but to put down the smug look that's always on Fred's face when he looks at me. Update number 3. 3 days later. Hey guys, I've decided not to tell my parents about Fred and his lies. At least not yet. With the footing that I have with my parents, I doubt that they'll believe me. They'll probably see it as me trying to cast aspersions on Fred and get them to look upon me with favor or get them to prefer me over him, which can't be further from what I want. So, I'll wait till the opportunity presents itself because I bring the truth about my brother out for all the family to see. Speaking of family, I received a call from my grandfather's lawyer, Greg, this morning. He was calling to inform me of my grandfather's death. The previous night, he claimed that he suspected my parents would not have informed me and so decided to call. He suspected, right? Guys, apparently. You know, the fact that I'm inconsequential to my parents is no secret. Or perhaps my grandfather had let him in on the crazy family dynamic present in the relationship between my parents, Fred, and me. Whatever the reason, he called to inform me of my grandfather's passing. I'm grateful. Because of this man's kindness, I was given the chance to honor the life of the only family member who ever showed me kindness. The one, to ask me questions about what I wanted for Christmas. The only one who perhaps truly saw me. Not that my grandfather was perfect in any way. To be honest, my grandfather was a gruff man who never hugged or said, "I love you." However, he still managed to give me awkward pats on the back whenever he would visit. He still managed to play with toy trucks with a 7-year-old me, and when he noticed that by the time I turned into a teenager, I was getting fascinated with dragons and the like, so he bought me a Harry Potter 7-volume chapter book. My grandfather might have lacked the words, but his actions spoke miles. He genuinely, truly loved me, which is way more than I can say about my parents and even Fred. I've always wondered how a man like him could produce a man like my father. I suspected that even he wondered that very same thing, but I guessed I will never know now that he's gone. He was the other reason I had attended the monthly brunch. When he learned of the family event, he starts dropping by every once in a while, and I would miss that old chap. After dispensing with condolences and the like, Greg informed me that he would be traveling down here in exactly a week's time to see the family regarding my grandfather's will. He said that he would have to come sooner, but he has to settle some things related to my grandfather's assets. The reading of the will means a family gathering, and where my parents and Fred are gathered, I'm sure to be put under the microscope and picked apart for the fun of it. I love my grandfather, and I would like to honor him by being present for his final will reading. However, I do not think that I'm ready to face my family. The wound from their last barb is still fresh. I'm thinking of telling Greg not to expect me at the reading. Yet how can I do that to the only man that had been so kind to me? Update number 4, 9 days later. Hey guys, I'm grateful for your advice concerning what I should do about attending the reading of my grandfather's will. Many of you suggested that I should first talk it out with Greg before deciding what to do, and that was what I ended up doing. I called Greg a few days ago and explained everything to him. Much to my surprise, he was also very understanding about it. It helped that my grandfather had explained certain things regarding my relationship with my parents. Even though he understood why I wanted to avoid the reading of my grandfather's will, He insisted that I had to hear it. And so he came up with a plan. He suggested that immediately he arrives at the city, we would both meet for a cup of joe, and he would read my grandfather's will to me. So, of course, I agreed. His insistence that I need to know my grandfather's will snagged my curiosity and fanned it to the highest flame. Yesterday was the day that he arrived, and just like we agreed, we met in a cafe, and over a cup of coffee. Greg read the words of my grandfather's final will to me. When he finished, I sat back in my chair, unable to form a coherent thought or sentence, and according to his will, my grandfather left me 60% of all his holding and assets, as well as his house, while to my parents he left 40%. The most shocking, and perhaps what rendered me speechless, is the fact that my grandfather did not leave anything for Fred. When I asked Greg if he knew why, he explained that my grandfather had gotten so irritated by many of Fred's boastings and claims during the monthly brunch that he had attended. According to Greg, my grandfather told him that the only thing that came out of Fred's mouth during his visit was boasting of how he was better than me. Because of this, my grandfather cut him off from his will, believing that this would teach him a little humanity. Then grandfather had taken the 30% that he had first allotted Fred and added it to mine. Never in a million years did I see this coming, that somebody would be offended on my behalf and do such a thing for me. It's never even occurred to me, and I'm still having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Oh, to see the face of Fred when the will is read, I can't imagine how my parents' face will look. I mean, for sure, they would be horrified, and that's the one look that I've not seen on their faces. At least not when it came to anything that has to do with Fred. And it is the one that I would love to see. Oh, I suddenly have a hankering to attend the official reading of my grandfather's will, where everybody will be. When the bombshell of my grandfather cutting Fred out of the will is dropped, nothing can be more perfect of an aftermath than revealing of the lies that Fred calls his life. Don't you think so? Update number 5, 4 days later. Hey guys, so it's been an interesting few days. A day after our meeting at the cafe, I informed Greg that I had changed my mind and that I would like to attend the official reading of my grandfather's will. Greg did not sound surprised by my sudden change of mind. Instead, he sounded pleased. During the call, I suggested that Greg read the will during the monthly brunch, which would be coming up very soon. He agreed and called my parents to set things up. Yesterday, I attended my family's monthly brunch for the first time since I walked away in anger. They were surprised, but their surprise quickly turned into sneers and cutting comments, but this time, I refused to allow them to faze me. I simply sipped on my coffee and ate my croissant as I waited for Greg to arrive. Fred was going on and on about his latest take from his non-existent job when Greg arrived. Greg was introduced to Fred and I, even though I'd already met him, but my parents did not know that. After the introductions, Greg immediately set to the reading of my grandfather's will. When he was done, he affirmed that my grandfather was of sound mind and was under no influence when he wrote the will. After this, Greg stood up and left, claiming that he had a flight to catch, effectively avoiding the chaos that was about to erupt. Smart man! My parents just kept staring at me as though they were trying to figure out why my grandfather would give someone like me as much as 60% of his assets. Fred burst into tears. I could hardly believe my eyes, but no matter how many times I blinked, my younger brother was still weeping. My father tried to console him and told him to buck up, and reminded him that he still had a good job, one that paid well, so there was no need to mourn the loss of grandfather's assets. However, Fred did not stop crying. If anything, his tears came on harder. Our parents were so confused and started asking if something was wrong. That's when I cleared my throat and came in. I, so innocently asked Fred if he would like to confess to our parents the whole truth. Our parents just got more confused, and they asked Fred what I was talking about. But Fred was too busy crying to offer any explanation, and finally, my father turned to me and asked me to explain, which I did. Gently, I told him that Fred has no job, that he's been lying to us for a long time, and that he's been living on the mercies of a friend. My mother asked Fred if what I was saying was going to be true, which Fred did not answer. My father snapped at him, and in all my life, my father has never snapped at Fred. Fred was so shocked that he snapped out of his little self-pity and gave a slow nod answer. My father became as white as a sheet, while Mother turned so red, I feared she was about to explode. See, Fred, apparently fearing for his life, began to stammer, bumbling out some explanation about how he had lied because he had not wanted to disappoint them. Yeah. My mom, she stands up, drawing his wife up with him, and then he tells Fred that he was cutting him off from the family, that he was a disgrace and was not to come near him and my mom. Before my very eyes, the golden boy was being disowned, just like that. And as I watched Fred throw himself at the feet of our parents and our parents walk away without a backward glance, all I felt was sadness. Sadness at the crooked state of this family I call mine. How can my parents so easily discard their own children? Perhaps this will teach Fred a bit of humility like my grandfather hoped. As for me, I shall be off to my grandfather's house soon. A change of environment is what I need. You know, just in case my parents suddenly decide to notice me. Not that I expect them to. Regardless, a new environment will go a long way in this journey of self-discovery that I've started. I want to take this opportunity just to say how grateful I am for all of you. You know, and for me having walked through this with y'all. Thank you a million times. Comment number 1 says, "Man, that's incredible. I'm so glad everything turned around for you. You deserve that recognition from your grandfather, and it's amazing how karma caught up with your bro. I can only imagine how satisfying it must truly be to expose his lies in front of your family like that. You've shown so much resilience and humility through this whole ordeal. Your grandfather clearly saw the real you and rewarding your integrity. You know, keep your head up. You deserved it." Comment number 2. "Oh, spare me the drama. You're just going on and gloating because things finally went your way. Your family's always favored your brother, but maybe that's because he's got ambition and drive unlike you. Losing your job, that's pathetic. And now you're just, I don't know, reveling in your brother's downfall? That's not vindication, that's petty. Your grandfather's will was probably just a guilt trip anywho, so you think you're better than your brother now? Please, you're just as flawed."